Hey, what's up, Coin Fam? Do you know how to identify rare and valuable pennies in your pocket change? Watch this video and we'll talk about errors and varieties that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars under the right circumstances. The 1943 Lincoln cent minted on a zinc-coated steel planchet to save copper for the war. Well, that's not a steel penny. Guess again. This is a planchet error. The planchet is 65% silver. This penny was actually struck on a silver dime planchet. If I could show you the edges, it would be much thinner than a penny. This penny graded a solid 40, but the uniqueness of the penny on the silver planchet didn't hold this back from selling at heritage auctions for $10,800. Here's a beautiful 1957 Proof 68 red deep cameo wheat cent. There's nothing at all wrong with this coin. Its value isn't derived from an error or a variety. It's solely because this penny is so sexy. This work of art sold at auction for $7,200. This is a 2001 Denver minted penny that has been muled with a Roosevelt dime reverse. This penny dime combination graded mint state 66 red by PCGS, and it sold at auction for, get this, $114,000. Most collectors are well aware of the 1955 double die penny. This is one of the most popular error coins in existence. In fact, it's been featured in at least two movies, the 1989 movie UHF and the 2010 Stephen King novel A Good Marriage that was made into a movie. The doubling on this Lincoln cent can be seen easily with the naked eye. This beautiful 1955 double die penny was graded mint state 65 red on a scale from 1 to 70, and it sold at auction for almost $50,000. Take a look at this poorly struck 1974 San Francisco minted Lincoln cent. The front of this penny is lacking so much detail. You can't make out all of the letters in the motto, "In God We Trust." The date and mint mark are very light, and most of the letters in Liberty can't even be seen. The detail of this brockage strike is coming through much better than many of the obverse features. According to PCGS, a struck 1973 S coin and a blank planchet were fed into the press at the same time. This is how this reverse brockage coin was born. This penny was submitted to NGC for grading, and it came back mint state 64 with a red-brown color designation. This penny sold at auction for $11,400. Here's a very expensive 1931 Denver minted penny. The 1931 D penny is relatively common, but not in this grade and with the original luster. As of the date of the sale of this coin, there were only 9 of them known to be from the same grade, mint state 66. 1 graded mint state 66 plus, and 3 in even higher grades. There were very few marks or traces of carbon when this was inspected by PCGS. How much is something like this worth? Sometimes there's a very big difference between the value of an item and what it actually sells for at auction when you have rich people trying to outbid each other. This 1931 Denver minted mint state 66 red penny sold for $3,480. Take a look at this 1983 Lincoln cent. You've probably heard of grease errors that prevent the details of a design from being pressed into a planchet, and you might even blame grease for the missing letters of God and the word in. But missing letters or details is also a sign of a weak strike, possibly from a broken or damaged die. In this case, it's a damaged die, and this damage resulted in a fairly large cud on the reverse of this penny. A cud is a die break that affects the edge of a coin. A bigger cud usually results in a more valuable coin. This penny was graded about uncirculated 58 on a scale from 1 to 70, and it sold at auction for $1,320. Here's a 1943 Denver minted Lincoln cent. This penny was graded by Annex and came back a mint state 63 on a scale from 1 to 70. That's not a bad grade, but this penny also contains an error known as a variety, because the error was on the die and likely created thousands of this mistake. In 1943, the mint mark was actually punched into the completed die by a mint worker. The original punch was off a little bit to the southwest. You can still see remnants of the original punch, and that adds some value to this steel cent. This wartime cent sold at auction for $300. Here's a regular strike 1957 wheat cent. This coin was minted in Philadelphia. No errors, no variety, just one of the highest graded pennies for this year and mint mark. This penny graded mint state 67 plus, and it sold at auction for over $20,000. This next coin was listed on the top 100 U.S. coins list by Garrett and Guth. As you can imagine, this coin is in high demand. There were only 484,000 of these coins produced. This is the 1909 SVDB. Why is it such a desirable coin? It's because of the S and the VDB. The VDB is the name of the designer of the Lincoln cent, Victor David Brenner. You can see the VDB on the bottom of the reverse of this coin below the wheat stalks right here. When the Lincoln cent was first released in 1909, it was generally accepted by the public except for the prominent initials of Mr. Brenner. People thought the initials were too large and obvious. The U.S. Mint took care of this by removing Mr. Brenner's initials from the cent, but millions of these pennies had already been produced by the Philadelphia Mint. The San Francisco Mint, however, only produced 484,000 of these. Even in poor condition, this variety can bring in an easy $700. So how much do you think a 1909 SVDB graded mint state 67 red brought in an auction? How about $117,500? Take a look at this 1944 San Francisco minted zinc-plated steel planchet penny. Pennies in 1943 were made of steel instead of copper, so the copper could be used for war efforts. In 1944, copper planchets were used once again, but not for this coin. This coin is one of only two known. It graded mint state 66, and it's the only known uncirculated example. That's why this penny sold for $373,750 at auction. We already discussed a double die earlier in this video. This is the 1970 San Francisco minted double die obverse. This coin is in really good condition. The doubling isn't as obvious as the 1972 DDO we saw earlier, but the doubling is still really obvious on most of the letters in Liberty. The doubling comes... We've checked out a couple DDO varieties. Now it's time to check out a different variety. Here's a newer penny to look for. This is a 1992 Denver minted Lincoln cent. You can tell it was minted in Denver by the look of despair on the face of Lincoln, or by the letter D under the date. There's nothing unusual about this coin on the obverse, and when you take a look at the reverse, unless you know your coins or you watch my recent close and wide AM video, you won't see anything unusual. If you know anything about cams, you know that the 1992 D reverse should be the wide AM version. This 1992 D reverse is the close AM variety, and it's worth some pretty good money. Some of the 1992 D pennies were minted with the wrong reverse die. You can tell by the spacing of the A and M in America. The difference can be hard to tell unless you compare it to the wide AM version. You're basically looking for the A and the M to be touching. There are a few other ways to identify the wrong reverse for this year. You can learn more about them and other wide and close AMs to look for by clicking the link at the end of this video. This penny was graded mint state 65 red and sold at auction for $8,400. Here's a good-looking 1943 steel cent. Despite some scratches on the surface of the coin, the toning gives this wartime cent a little more character. This Lincoln cent was submitted to PCGS for grading and was given a respectable mint state 67 grade. That green CAC sticker on the slab means that this is one of the finer 1943 mint state 67 pennies out there. This steel cent is also a double die. During the creation of a die, if the die rotates in between strikes with the hub, some of the features of the coin can be doubled. Doubling can be subtle, or it can be as obvious as the 1955 Lincoln cent DDO. The doubling on this coin is somewhat subtle and shows as extra thickness of the letters in the word Liberty. The doubling is most obvious on the tail of the 9 in the date. This penny was just sold recently on March 29, 2024, when Heritage Auction sold this valuable coin for $2,280. What could be worth more than a Mint State 66 1944 steel penny? How about a Mint State 63 1943 copper penny? Copper 1943 pennies are extremely rare. There are only about a dozen of them known to exist. This penny was graded Mint State 64 brown. Pennies in 1943 were minted on zinc-plated steel planchets in order to conserve copper for the war. If you happen to come across one of these, it's more likely that it's been counterfeited rather than it being the real thing, so make sure you have it authenticated. This rare penny sold at auction for $840,000. Here's an interesting looking penny. The dull looking photo looks like it's black and white, but this is the actual color of this penny. At first glance, it may remind you of the 1943 steel planchet, but this planchet isn't steel. It weighs in at less than a gram. This planchet is actually aluminum. When you're trying to figure out the cause of an error or variety, it's important to know as much as you can about the history and the process of minting coins. The mint has used aluminum and combinations of metals on experimental planchets. Sometimes mint employees intentionally feed other planchets or items in between dies to create intentional errors. And finally, the U.S. Mint does mint coins for other countries and territories at times. In fact, in 1971, the Mint was minting coins for Nepal and the Philippines on aluminum planchets. Whether accidentally or intentionally, that's likely the reason for this aluminum penny. It was submitted to NGC and was graded about uncirculated 58 on a scale from 1 to 70, and it sold at auction for over $8,000. Take a look at this old fella. This 1909 Lincoln cent has seen better days for sure. There's significant wear on the obverse, which is the front of the coin, as well as the reverse, which is the back or tail side of the coin. This penny is so worn, you can barely see the last 9 in the date. The Lincoln cent made its debut on August 2nd, 1909. Prior to the design featuring Lincoln, we had the Indian head cent. People weren't happy with the new penny though, and there was outrage over one particular feature in the design. They weren't angry with the shape of Lincoln's nose or the contour of his chin. They were angry with this little feature right here, the designer's initials. People felt like the initials of Victor David Brenner, VDB, were too prominently displayed. Angry enough that the U.S. Mint halted production of this coin and commissioned the creation of new dies without the initials of Brenner. That's what makes this severely limited design so valuable even in low grades. If you have an old coin collection, you might want to look at the penny in the 1909 slot. Make sure you watch the full video because there's a little more information about pennies from this year that you don't want to miss. Even in poor condition, very fine 20, this penny sold at auction on July 31st, 2024 for $990. Take a look at this 1971 Philadelphia minted Lincoln cent. If you know your double dies, it's pretty obvious what the attraction is on this one. You can see obvious doubling on the date, Liberty, and God. A few dozen of this variety have been certified as Mint State, but not too many of them has been as high as a Mint State 66 red, like this one here. This beautiful coin sold at auction for $10,350. This is a 1988 Lincoln cent. This penny is unique because it's a rare error penny. What's even more unique is that it was found in pocket change by someone who watches coin videos a few years back. This error coin was the victim of a doubled die, and the doubling isn't on the features of the coin that you see in most other double die errors. The doubling on this penny coin is most obvious on Lincoln's left ear. Here's what Lincoln's ear looks like on a normal 1988 Philadelphia minted penny. And here's what it looks like on the double die version of the penny. You can clearly see the doubling of the bottom part of Lincoln's ear. So how much is this thing worth? A coin's value is based on its grade, appearance, and rarity. So far, this penny that was found a few years ago in pocket change is the highest graded coin in this variety. This penny was graded Mint State 66 red on a scale from 1 to 70 by PCGS. Due to its rarity and condition, It sold for over $3,000 at Heritage Auctions in 2020. Here's a 1957 Proof 68 red with a cameo designation. This penny sold at auction in January 2024 for $192. This 1999 Philadelphia minted Lincoln cent. This penny was broad-struck. A broad-struck coin is when a coin is struck without the collar that retains the planchet. The lack of retaining collar causes the planchet to expand. In order for a coin to be considered broad-struck, the design of the coin must be centered. If it's not centered, it's considered an off-center strike. In addition to this penny being broad-struck, it was also struck with another penny in between the planchet. You can barely make out the mirrored image of E pluribus unum, and some of the other reverse details can be made out on the brockage portion of this Lincoln cent. The reverse of this penny isn't nearly as chaotic as the obverse, but it's still obvious that this is an error coin. This penny was graded Mint State 61 red by Annex. I've seen brockage coins sell for tens of thousands of dollars, and we'll talk about those later in the video. This penny sold at auction for $35. This 1943 Denver minted Lincoln cent sold for $3,780. Why did it sell for so much? 'Cause collectors be ballin'. This penny was graded Mint State 68 and was endorsed by CAC with the magic green sticker. When collectors come across a rare item they want, they're willing to pay the big money. How about this 1945 Denver minted pretty penny? This isn't an error coin, but its value is due to its grade. This is the highest grade 1945 Denver minted penny known to exist. It's so rare, the estimated price for a penny like this is currently $16,000. This one here sold at auction for $14,400. This is a 1983 Lincoln cent, and this penny is a transition error. A transition error occurs when a change is made to the design or composition of a coin, and somehow the old design or composition finds its way into or on the new coin. In 1982, the mint went from mostly copper planchets to mostly zinc planchets. It's believed that the older copper planchets may have been lodged in a hopper or the crevice of a mint bin and found their way on the press. Either way, you can imagine that these errors are both rare and valuable. You can't tell the difference between the two different planchets by looking at them. You're going to have to weigh them. When I'm coin roll hunting, I separate all of the 1983 pennies so I can check them for this very error. After they're separated, I'll put them on a scale and check the weight of each coin. Your 1983 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams, give or take a couple hundredths of a gram. If you have a 1983 penny that weighs 3.11 grams, you've hit the jackpot. This 1983 Lincoln cent weighed in at 3.1 grams and was graded Mint State 62 red-brown. It sold at Heritage Auctions for over $23,000. This is a 1909, and yes, it is a VDB. This is a matte proof. It was graded Proof 67 plus. That's a really high grade for a penny, let alone one more than 100 years old. But then again, it is a proof, so generally they have higher grades than circulated coins. If that's not enough though, this coin has a CAC gold label. This label means that the Certified Acceptance Corporation believes this coin is on the high end of its grade. Put all of these factors together and add the fact that the known population for this coin at this grade is a 1, and you've got a coin that's sold at auction for $258,000. The U.S. Mint has minted coins from multiple locations throughout the years. Some mints are no longer in use. Most of our coinage today comes from Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and even West Point. The mint location is usually indicated on the coin with the first letter of the city it was minted in, like D for Denver, S for San Francisco, and W for West Point. Most coins minted in Philadelphia will have no mint mark at all, except for certain years. I know this can be very confusing for people. There were two coinage dates where the Philadelphia Mint wasn't used for cent production, 1815 and 1922. In 1922, the Denver Mint picked up the Philadelphia Mint production. So there were no Philadelphia minted pennies, and the Denver minted pennies should have the D mint mark under the date. There have been a few times through the years when a coin was supposed to have a mint mark and didn't. This has happened when a no mint mark Philadelphia die was shipped to another mint accidentally, and also has happened when a die was overpolished and the mint mark was accidentally removed during polishing. This has led to the variety we're about to discuss, the 1922 No Descent, also known as the 1922 Plain. Much like my wife, when she made me angry, this variety got no D. I really like the character this coin has. A penny designated red is usually more valuable, but I like the dark brown appearance of this one here. The strike on the obverse is decent, but check out the quality of the reverse strike. There are actually two varieties of the No D 1922 cent. There's the strong reverse, like this one here, and there's a weak reverse variety as well. This 1922 No D Lincoln Wheat cent was graded Mint State 63 Plus Brown and sold at Heritage auctions for almost $17,000. Here's a nice looking 1914 Denver minted Lincoln cent. It has a nice red color and some unusual toning. Sometimes toning happens naturally due to environmental conditions, but the toning and appearance of this penny are unfortunately from cleaning. You never want to clean potentially valuable coins. It will prevent them from receiving a number grade and severely impact the value of your coin. This 1914 D penny still fetched over $1,300 when it sold at auction recently, but if it had never been cleaned, it would have easily doubled in value. This is a 2014 Shield cent. This is the most current design for the back of the Lincoln cent. This particular penny is in nice shape. It was graded Mint State 66 red on a scale from 1 to 70. The reason you want to know about this modern penny is because it's a doubled die. During the creation of the die, which is the part that strikes the coin, the master hub rotated, causing doubling on the die. This doubling was so slight it resulted in extra thickness on some of the design features, most notably on the date and some of the letters in Liberty. Look at the misshapen curvature of the 2 and the extra thickness at the base of the 2 and here on the 4. And it's hard to miss the thickness of the top and bottom parts of the 0 juxtaposed to the deflated portions here and here. And here's a close-up of the word Liberty. You can see the extra thickness of some of the letters. This is best viewed under a microscope, magnifying glass, or loupe at about 5 times magnification. This DDO penny sold at auction for $456. If you found one in better condition, it would be worth even more. Here's a 1957 D wheat cent that sold recently at Heritage auctions. It graded Mint State 67 red and sold for $276 in January 2024. Here's a decent looking 1960 large date Lincoln cent. You can see a decent strike and not much wear. This penny was graded a Mint State 62 brown by NGC. Here's the reverse. There's a fair amount of detail on the back of this penny, but it's not the Lincoln Memorial. You can see the reverse silhouette of Abraham Lincoln, the date, and Liberty. According to Heritage Auctions, this blockage error was created when this planchet was struck by the obverse die and the obverse of the previously struck cent that was stuck to the reverse die. This penny was graded Mint State 62 brown and sold at auction for $1,092. I've talked about coins similar to this one on the channel before, but never one as ugly as this one right here. This is a 1943 wheat cent, but it's not struck on a zinc-coated steel planchet like it's supposed to be. It's also not struck on a copper planchet like a penny. So what's the deal? This penny was found in change in 1965. It weighs 2.7 grams. A copper penny weighs 3.11 grams. And the copper-plated zinc planchets used today weigh 2.5 grams, and they weren't used in 1943. This coin was sent to a lab to be tested. It came back as an alloy of 70 to 80% silver and 20 to 30% copper. This happens to be a planchet from the Dutch colony of Curaçao. The U.S. Mint supplied 2.5 million 25-cent coins to the Dutch colony in 1943. Somehow, one of these planchets made it in between 2 crushing wheat cent dies, and this Franken coin was created. This penny graded very fine 12, and it sold at auction for almost $7,500. Have you ever heard of the close AM or wide AM penny? There are wide and close AM varieties that vary by year. This variety can still be found in circulation to this day. This is a 1992 close AM. In 1993, a change was made to the reverse design of the penny. This new design had the A and the M in America spaced very close to each other. Somehow, the 1993 reverse dies were used for at least some 1992 cents, and what's best of all, this rare variety is still being found in circulation. There have been about 20 of these varieties found so far from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Take a look at how close the A and the M are compared to the wide AM. This 1992 Lincoln cent was graded Mint State 67 red and was given the close AM designation. This penny sold for $28,850. This 1913 San Francisco minted penny sold at auction for over $63,000. Here's why. One of the main factors that determines the price of collectibles is rarity. This is the same with any collectible. Sometimes the whole production of coins for a particular year is considered rare because of low mintage or low remaining population. These are called key dates and semi-key dates, depending on the rarity. The 1913S is considered a semi-key date. Finding a penny from this year and in mint state condition is very rare. This particular 1913 San Francisco minted penny graded Mint State 66 red. Because of the combination of the low population and high grade, this penny sold for $63,250. This 1944 Denver minted dirty penny was found in pocket change by Robert Collins of Pacifica, California, and sold at auction for over $58,000. Here's why. In 1943, the U.S. Mint began minting pennies using steel instead of copper because of the war. The mint resumed copper planchets in 1944. It was common among collectors to switch out the copper pennies for steel pennies whenever they could, and I hope it paid off well for Mr. Collins. When he realized a steel cent was for the wrong year, he took it to a few dealers to have it authenticated. I don't know how much Mr. Collins got for this 1944 steel cent in 1966, but I plan to do some research to get more details about his find. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss this video when I publish it. At some point, this scratched and oxidized steel cent was sent to NGC for grading and was given a grade of Mint State 61. This steel planchet, weighing 2.9 grams, sold at auction for over $58,000. Here's a more recent penny. This one is from 1972 and it's in really good condition. In fact, this penny graded a Mint State 66 red on a scale from 1 to 70. This penny is worth more than the average 1972 penny because it's one of an unusual variety. It's a double die. Sometimes a coin die rotates between strikes when the die is being created. This results in a die that has some of the features doubled. The error is actually on the die, so every coin minted with that die contains this variety. You can clearly see the doubling on every letter and number on the front of this penny. This Mint State 66, 1972 Lincoln cent sold at auction for over $1,300. How many times have you received change and looked down to see a handful of dirty pennies like this one here? This is a 1982 Denver minted Lincoln cent. It's obviously been in circulation for quite some time. It was submitted for grading and came back about uncirculated 58. This penny sold at auction for $10,800. So what are we missing? This penny is actually an extremely rare transition error. In late 1982, the U.S. Mint started using a 95% zinc planchet to replace the 95% copper planchet. There were some problems with the design of the year and the new planchet being used, so the date was changed. Not the year, just the design. There is a large date version and a small date version. There are a few differences, but the easiest way to tell the difference for me is the shape of the two. I have a video that goes into this in a lot more detail, but the bottom line is that the 2 on the small date variety is curved in the middle. There are also differences between the 8 holes, the space between the date and the edge of the coin, as well as a spacing of other numbers in the date. The 1982 D small date was believed to be used with the new 95% zinc planchet only. But there was a coin nerd out there in Minnesota, sorry Paul Malone, weighing all of the 1982 D small date transition year pennies. 2.5 grams, 2.47 grams, 2.5 grams, and on until he came across the only one discovered at that time, weighing in at 3.07 grams. The first 95% copper 1982 Denver minted small date Lincoln cent ever discovered. There are plenty of other variety 1982 large and small date no mint mark pennies from Philadelphia in copper and zinc. There are plenty Denver minted 1982 large date pennies in copper and zinc. The rare and valuable transition year 1982 penny you're looking for is the 1982 D small date, which weighs 3.11 grams, give or take a few tenths of a gram. Get yourself an inexpensive food scale. You can check out the links in the description below and make sure to weigh all. This one graded Mint State 65 red. The picture isn't very good, but you can clearly see the outline of another D poking out from the top and left side of the prominent D. This one sold at auction for $80. This next penny has been on the want list for many, many years. My father told me he used to check his change when he was a kid looking for this classic double die. Which one is it? How about the 1955 double die obverse? There's nothing subtle about the doubling on this one. In God We Trust, Liberty, and 1955. This elusive variety was graded about uncirculated 58 brown. Pennies graded red are generally worth more money, but I love the way the old bronze pennies turned this caramel color. This one sold at Heritage Auctions for $2,880. The magic green sticker strikes again. Here's another 1943 steel war penny. This is really a beautiful coin. You're not going to see a better looking 1943 steely out there. This penny was graded Mint State 68 by PCGS, and it sold at auction for $7,200. All coin collectors have heard about the 1909 SVDB. A lot of them used to search every handful of change looking for them, and some of us still do. The VDB is the designer's initials, Victor David Brenner. There was some outrage back in 1909 about the designer's initials on the back of the coin, so after a limited release, they were removed. That's why these are so valuable. This one graded fair 12 brown, and it sold at auction for over $1,000. Most coins, including pennies, were minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The Denver minted coins have a D mint mark, and the Philadelphia coins have a P mint mark, or no mint mark at all, depending on the year the coin was minted. In 1922, no Lincoln cents were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, yet a variety of this Denver minted coin has been discovered with no mint mark. And just when you thought all of that made sense, there's actually a variety within a variety. This is a 1922 no D weak reverse, and this one right here is a 1922 no D strong reverse. The weak reverse is a bit more common. The 1922 no D weak reverse sold for $5,750, while the 1922 no D strong reverse graded Mint State 64 red brown sold for $74,750. Here's a great looking double die variety anyone would love to have in their collection. This is a 1969 S Mint State 64 red double die obverse. Cents are routinely put in a category based on their color. These categories are red, red-brown, and brown. A red designation on an older coin is generally worth more than other designations. The doubling on this penny is very obvious. Take a look at the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" as well as the date. Put all of this together and you've got a penny worth $126,500. The first coin we discussed in this video was a 1909 S VDB that graded very fine 20 and sold at auction for almost $1,000. As you can see here, this 1909 S VDB looks much different than the first one. It's obviously in much better condition. If this penny was minted last week, it would be in great condition. If it wasn't pressed into a coin, I wouldn't believe that this beautiful coin is 115 years old. And isn't it crazy that most of the value of this penny comes from the rarity of the coin because of the designer's initials? So the first 1909S VDB VF20 that we looked at sold for $990. This penny was graded Mint State 67 red. At the time of the auction sale of this penny, there were only 13 coins known to be grade 67 with no known coins in a better grade. This makes this penny super valuable. That's why it sold for $94,000. Here's an interesting penny that I just can't agree with PCGS on the grade. I know the grade is mainly the quality of the strike and the level of wear on a coin. Don't get me wrong, this is a nice strike with little wear. This 1936 proof coin was graded a proof 65 red. Maybe you can educate me. Leave me a comment below and let me know if you agree or disagree with the grade by PCGS and why. The reverse of this penny looks really good and matches with the grade better in my opinion, but I can't reconcile all of the marks and scratches on the obverse of this penny with a grade of 66. Maybe the scratches are on the plastic slab, maybe they aren't even scratches, maybe they're just marks on the coin. This 1936 proof penny sold at Heritage Auctions for $2,400. When it comes to obvious double dies, you've got the 1955 double die, the 1969S double die, and the third most obvious double die is the 1972 Lincoln DDO. You can see the obvious doubling on In God We Trust and Liberty. It's not as obvious, although it's still obvious AF on the date. This one was graded Mint State 67 red. At the time of the sale of this one here, there were only 24 in this grade and color, and only one in a higher grade. This 1972 DDO sold at auction for $12,925. And here's a 1957 penny minted in Denver. This coin graded Mint State 66 red, and it's a double die. This picture is terrible, so you can't see the doubling. Here are some pictures from a great website called doubledie.com. There are 27 different varieties of double dies according to Wexler's site. This penny is variety 2. Here you can see signs of doubling on several letters of the word Liberty, as well as the date. And here are some other examples of doubling on In, God, and We. Don't forget those DDRs for the 1957 wheat cent as well. There are at least 6 varieties out there, but no pictures were available on the site. This DDO right here, it sold at auction for $87. I hope you like the added history and explanation in my videos. They should stand out compared to the AI garbage that gives us coin tubers a bad name. If you learned something and you think my voice is sexy, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.